I was taking a backseat to my own life.
When your sole motivation is the approval or acceptance of others, you will always be disappointed.
I was telling myself I wasn't good enough for it. You're not going to get noticed because you're not doing enough.
Take women. How much in those developing years is beauty used as a way to be more desirable for that outcome that needs to happen?
I was meant to believe that I belonged here by them. But in my own head, in my own right, I can't picture my life going where all of yours are and already did.
Why am I sitting here immobilized and paralyzed? Because I'm trying to meet expectations I'm setting for myself that I have no idea whether they're going to happen.
It started to become that weird line of, I don't need this, I want it.
And that's the shift. Well, hi.
Hey, girly.
How are you?
Doing good.
Look at you in this makeup.
You know, I had a little extra time.
I know. Yeah.
I did. And I said, let's do something nice.
Let's do something nice. Well, that kind of goes along.
Stephanie's birthday.
For Stephanie's birthday. Stephanie, Angelina, Joanne, Germanata. Yes, it's funny that you did this. Well, A, that goes along with today's topic. And B, it's funny that you did this today, not yesterday. Because yesterday we filmed our reaction to Lady Gaga's Chromatica Ball on Patreon, the bonus episode for the month. So you just,
Yeah, I think I was going to do this yesterday and I was just not, there was no steam yesterday.
Yeah.
With the train left the station.
It was from Pizza Hut.
Girl. Yeah, I was like not in the mood to do makeup yesterday, but I was like, who am I doing this for but me? So let's do it today.
Yes. On today's topic. So I got an idea from going to therapy today. I had to go to because normally I do it on Mondays, but it was Memorial Day. So I did it today. And it being a day I don't normally go on, it was at like 2:00 or whatever, which normally I like it earlier in the morning. But I like it any time of day. Yeah. So you came over at 3 and so I thought about canceling because I was like, it's in the middle of the day. But for everyone's benefit, I went to therapy.
We love that.
So I did that. And it kind of like, I don't know what we were talking about. It kind of like, I don't know. I had a couple like aha light bulb moments. Then I was relating it to this. And I kind of want to explore like resentment and expectations as it lends itself to beauty. Because I think resentments and expectations alone are a topic that I think we can dive into, but especially as it relates to beauty, because I think beauty, as we say it, and when we say the word beauty in today's podcast, we mean hair, makeup, the guiche, the getting up in the garb is an industry built on expectations. That really is the whole thing. So I think even beyond our expectations that we might have personally or that are very specific to us, like i.e. me starting as a creator with it, us doing this, I think it's applicable to people listening because there is so much you can dive into relating to your relationship with beauty and wanting to get into it or being afraid to get into it or having been into it and given up on it because of these expectations or just your relationship with it. So that's kind of what I wanted to dive into.
Oh, yeah.
But other than that, we're going to the Solid Pink Disco tomorrow, Trixie's show.
Yep, the change of plans.
Yes.
Wasn't going to go initially, but now I'm excited that we get to go. That's going to be so much fun. And
I'm excited.
I'm going to come scoop you up and we're going to go down.
Yeah.
I have restaurants in mind.
Yes.
Because I'm just a complete... And I'm thinking about the food.
Of course.
That I'm
Do only eat food?
We plan out good lunches and dinners.
Of course.
Because we know, I'm not going to the IHOP down the street.
Absolutely.
Like, and don't get me wrong, don't get that twisted, because I love diner food at like 3 a.m.
Oh, of course. Well, don't compare IHOP to a diner, but yes.
Well, no, like, because people would say that's their diner, because Jersey diners, New York,
that's
and everything.
A shame.
Yeah, like, I feel like in the tri-state area, there's diners everywhere, but not, especially in Jersey, but like not in... So IHOP is a diner to people.
Yes. Yeah.
I feel bad.
I know. IHOP was ruined for me. My sister was a waitress there for like a hot minute.
Good for me.
I know, but it was, you entertained it. I think I did at least back then.
Yeah.
And it was ruined for me when my sister was a waitress there and one of the cooks peed in the batter. Can you believe that? Some people, like jail, girl. That should be
peed in the batter?
That probably is like a federal offense to some. You know what I mean? Because you're like, God only knows what you could do to people. Like, yeah. I know. Girl,
peed in the batter?
I worked at Cracker Barrel. They used to swat those bugs off the stove with the spatula and then continue cooking with the spatula. Yeah. yeah, not cute.
I don't want to go out to eat anymore.
I know, girl. I know. And diners, I wonder, and I'm sure someone will tell us or whatever, but I want to look like, I do really feel like the diner and what we're talking about, a diner, really is like a New England thing, which is so interesting.
Yeah.
Why is it not?
I don't know why it's not more wide. Because I remember even like this past weekend, I went to a wedding and we went out to go get breakfast the next night, tri-state area. We were in Pennsylvania, like readily available because I'm like, oh yeah, we'll go to a diner. And like we went to one and I'm thinking while I was there, even the experience I'm going to say behind it and like the atmosphere was very... It was very comical.
Yeah.
That it was like those like cheesy signs were everywhere. It was like there was a sign that is rent free in my head. It said exercise. I thought you said extra fries. And I literally wanted to take it off the wall.
Yeah.
And take it home.
Yeah. Take it home. Yeah.
But I was just like, oh, this isn't like a diner. Like where I'm like, I feel at home. Like when I go to a diner and I don't feel like I could just,
yes.
And order anything off of a menu.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only place where I would order a tuna melt and chocolate chip pancakes and know I'll be fine either way.
I say it all the time. I think the country should be run by people who run diners. Because I say, like, where else could you get pancakes, a turkey club, salmon, or meatloaf at a moment's notice? What does the stockroom look like that they need to have that breadth of products ready to go at a moment's notice? And depending if it's a good diner, it's ready in 5 seconds and it is phenomenal. Yeah. Like, what is that?
Well, and I don't trust fish or like...
Yeah. I said salmon, I regretted it. But I know what you mean.
The amount of times that I was at there's a diner that I used to, like I grew up going to. And like to this day, they have like tilapia on the menu. And like...
I didn't know I was on the menu.
Which is so funny that it's cheapest of fish.
We're disgusting. Gutted. Yeah.
Yeah, Gia saying fresh tilapia. And it's the cheapest, dirtiest of fish. Anyway, whatever. But it's so funny that I'm like, I would never order seafood at a diner, but I appreciate it.
It's funny though, the diner right by me that we go to.
Well, that's fierce. That's different.
Whenever my dad and stepmom come up, my dad always gets... the fish and chips there, and he says it's like some of the best he's ever gotten.
Okay, but that diner works me out.
Oh, that's what I mean, though. Some of these, you know what's really funny too? You know the guy Jimmy Hoffa? No, is it Jimmy Hoffa? Did you ever watch The Irishman?
No.
Horrible movie. It was like 3.5 hours. It was horrendous. But anyway, the guy who Al Pacino plays. Who's the guy in New Jersey area? The lore that he like disappeared, mobster. No one knows where he is. Jimmy, isn't it Jimmy Hoffa?
But who am I thinking of? That's
your dad.
Daddy, Papa, can you hear me?
Jimmy Hoffa, yes. Al Pacino's right? Jimmy Hoffa,
Who am I thinking of? I don't know. Somebody else.
But Jimmy Hoffa, they always joke around, is like buried under Giant Stadium. That's what they always say is the joke that like that because they never found him. Yeah. And then there was always jokes growing up, especially if you're like from an Italian family. They joke around too, like that he's like a speed bump somewhere, like in that, like because whatever, the mob killed him, yada yada. But the diner in my town was the #1 meeting place of Jimmy Hoffa. Had like a booth in that diner, him and his boys, and they would basically have like a weekly meeting. Their weekly meeting in the diner in my town. So the joke is always like how many hits were planned at that diner. Isn't that crazy? I know. Wild. So,
girl.
I know.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Spoopy.
I have brown hair. We forgot.
Oh.
Yeah. Which, that's, how long have I, okay. So also the other little thing, we have a little bit of time. We went to the lip lab in New York City. Oh my God.
Oh.
I know, girl. We went to the lip lab in New York City.
Yes.
And we created our perfect lipsticks.
Yes.
Which you are definitely going to want to, we'll announce it, but head over to Patreon soon because that is going to probably be the like inaugural beauty video for the upcoming beauty tier.
Have we talked about the beauty tier, that there's going to be another
hinted
level
to it? Yeah,
another level on Patreon of like beauty content. That the lip lab, I've already in my head and on paper
created the whole line.
I already know what shades I'm making next.
Girl, we got the bug for like making our own makeup.
I already like the two, and you already know the one.
Yes.
That I'm like, I am ready to walk back in there like I am Bob Lip Lab and say, everybody out.
Yeah.
This is mine now.
Yes, absolutely.
I would just do that all day.
It was really cool getting to formulate it. The girl was great. We'll talk all about it in that video. Yes. But we went to the city because we had an It Cosmetics event. That was great. How great is the team? So I think it was a couple episodes ago we talked about the sunscreen, the Hello Sunshine sunscreen. That's what the event was for.
Product.
Incredible product. I wore it all day as my moisturizer because I forgot to put moisturizer on after my serum. Went right in with that. Held up all day because it was like 85 degrees. Beautiful product, but then we went to beautiful event in Central Park for It Cosmetics. But that team is just so dope.
I love them. I loved every single one of them that we got to meet and talk to. Such a cool team. I mean, it was really, what a cool experience to do, that it felt like more chill, and I liked the vibe of the event.
Yes.
That it felt a little more like, okay, we're not in like a conference room talking about sunscreen.
Absolutely.
It was very, very, very cool. And I loved it.
And really that was the event I might have told you guys eons ago when I'd gone to, they invited me to Harry Styles concert like 2 years ago at this point. And that's where I met them all for the first time and figured out I was the only one talking to the team. And the half of them, if not all of them, had like gone to the same college, Montclair State, as me.
Oh, yeah.
A couple of them were there when my husband, Casey, was there as a student and went with him. So we were just like headed out like a house on fire. Cool. So I love seeing them. But we did that. But the day before we redid our hair because we knew we were shooting the intro footage.
Yes.
So you went bald.
Girl.
You're bald.
I'm bald.
Doing your blonde again. And I was on the fence of going back to brown because I've been blonde for a year and a half. It was too much work. It was bleaching twice and toning like once every 2 weeks. And if I had something coming up, like let's say I did have an event or whatever, and my hair was like really grown out, I was like, okay, I got to do it earlier than expected for this thing because I have roots. And when your hair's short, it just looks whatever.
Yeah.
So we had a moment, of me being like, do I, don't I, whatever. And I ended up doing it.
Yeah.
I ended up loving it. And it was funny. And I don't know if I told you this or if I was talking to Casey about it, but I kind of had like a little bit of a revelation after the fact of like very much relating to what the topic is today, like about just self-image in relation to this entire thing. And it kind of gave me like a little bit of, I had an aha moment once I was back to brown, which I couldn't picture. And so I'll talk about that. But I love it because the maintenance is
very low.
Yes.
You could do a glaze on your hair now when you need to touch it up.
Which my sister found, Adri found, because she was blonde and went back to brown. And sometimes the brown, it just like, you can tell it fades in the summer and then it looks like a brassy brown because it's like kind of fading a little bit. So she was asking me about a blue shampoo for brunettes to tone, and I was going to recommend one to her. Ended up texting her. I was like, did you ever find one? And she actually it's a brown colored deposit mask from Moroccan Oil. And she says she's obsessed with it.
I've used it.
So I'm so excited because
I think I have it at home.
Yeah. This brown is like a little richer than my brown. I hate my natural brown because it's very ashy and mousy. And I was saying now that even when it grows out, I kind of wanted to do a glaze or whatever just to make it a richer because I love the way this looks. And so I'm so excited to try it once if it fades or...
I think I have it at home, so don't buy it. And I also have one I know for a fact from Good Day Young. Makes a brown one. So I can bring you that. And you can even try like a piece.
Absolutely.
Make sure you like the color.
Yeah.
Do like a little patch test.
Yeah. So now we're going to start getting more into, as well as blonde hair care on this podcast, we'll be able to talk to you about blonde and brown.
And who knows what my next color is.
I know.
After the journey that I had with my scalp.
Your scalp is so sensitive. You were like going through hell to do this last one.
Blisters,
girl,
sores,
it was bad.
It was bad. Chemical burns. Yeah, I was like, no,
chemical burn from the spiral perm. Let's take a break. If you are enjoying being a part of the beautiful and bothered family. Or if you just found us, we would like to tell you about the Beyond Bothered Patreon that is popping off. We're having so much fun. It is very quickly becoming one of our favorite platforms because we can quite literally do whatever we want and put it out the way we want, and we're not like
worried about algorithms,
fellatioing an algorithm of whatever platform, yada yada. So the videos can be super long. And as of right now, there is the podcast tier, a bonus episode at the end of every single month. There is already the Met Gala makeup police over there. And the other one is for the month of May, is the Chromatica Ball reaction video, which the food was sponsored by Pizza Hut. So that was a trip of a video. We also have bonus footage and bloopers every single week. We are rolling out, I'm finalizing the voice memo option because we want to have so many episodes coming down the pike where we answer your guys' question. And even for an episode like this today, how great would it be to hear from people about their takes on this? Like, that's what I'm super excited to introduce with this feature. And then in the month of June, we are going to introduce the beauty tier, which will have beauty videos,
everything
so many things I don't want to
beauty.
Yes, everything related to beauty.
It that way.
We'll put it that way. There's going to be so much in that tier. It is super affordable, super fun. Make sure to head over to the Beyond Bothered Patreon because, like I said, it's popping off. The link is in the bio of whatever you're watching: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc., etc.
See you over there.
I was telling you a little bit before you got here, so I apologize to you that you kind of have to rehear the speech, but I wanted to see if you were on board for the topic.
Of course.
So I was talking to my therapist today, and basically the whole gist of it is I've really been, obviously, which you guys know, if you're, have listened to the pod for a while, in a rut with my solo stuff with beauty, TikTok, Instagram, that short form aspect of beauty for many, many, many reasons. But I think I've gotten in a much better place in the more recent weeks. And about a year and a half ago was officially diagnosed with ADHD. And I then went down a rabbit hole for the next year and a half of exploring what that means, because there really is like nothing on it. Like, for perspective, my new psychiatrist that was the one after the one that diagnosed me, I was recommending books on ADHD to her. So let that speak volumes of what the mental health community thinks of ADHD. So that was also really hard last year because it was this almost flood moment of like the Jaws camera shot where everything, because it explained so much about my entire childhood, my everything. And with my therapist now, we're talking a lot about basically natural ways to combat ADHD or overcome certain things. And procrastination was what we were talking about. And she was mentioning to kind of have stimulation and she was saying podcasts in the morning. And I was like, I have a podcast that now I've refallen in love with season 2 of this podcast. So I've been listening to it and consuming it like crazy. And I said to her, I was like, but for me, I think someone with ADHD, I was like, it's very difficult for me to sever the line between that stimulation process, cutting it off, being like, okay, this has been lovely. Now it's time to be productive, and just continuing on with it, and then starting another episode and starting another, and then it transitioning into procrastination. And because that can be difficult with podcasts, because that is not that ours is ever a distraction, but you have a topic tease of the next episode or the guest, so it's enticing. So she was like, have you ever thought about music? And I said to her, which is something you and I have talked about, music to me, how I remember consuming music in my teens and 20s compared to now is like night and day. It gave me a feeling, what I call like the Santa Claus feeling. And if there's any children in the room who are listening to this, if we're on a speaker, I'm going to phrase it like this, because I believe very strongly, not ruining this, because it was ruined for me. It feels like the difference when you believed in Santa versus when you find out. It's that difference. And Christmas doesn't have that magic. And you can make it magical in the adult sense, but it's not the same. We all remember, a lot of us can remember what that feeling was when you believed that. Music is very much the same for me. It doesn't feel that way as it did back then. And a lot of it, I thought it was maybe the artist or that artist's work at the time. And then my therapist and I were talking a lot about, because I've alluded to her even in the beginning when I was like kind of setting goals with her, was I loved who I was as a kid when I was really young. I was so passionate about what I did, even if there was unhappiness in my life or chaos in my life. My world, what I did and what I loved was so satisfying. I was so creative. I was so passionate and expressive. And I miss that person. I miss that kid. And I feel like I've lost a lot of that. And I want to get back to that feeling. In how I've talked with her about when I was in theater growing up and singing and that world, which was my everything, she asked me why I felt about it the way I did. To explain my answer, another thing I brought up to her was when we were talking about family stuff, etc., and you can maybe relate to this, is growing up gay, especially at our age, there was no example of what you could grow up to be. There was maybe you were the only closeted LGBT person in your high school. And maybe you heard rumors there was another one in the other county. There was none of that. And we've, I think, explored on this podcast how that resulted in me kind of just shelving it and not dealing with it, whatever the case is. But that being said, I said to her, and I really wanted to make sure she didn't think this was morbid, but I was like, my life now, being 32 years old, being married, having a house, the whole 9 yards, is very shocking to me because I said to her, when I was younger, I always thought I was going to die young. And she was like, what do you mean? And I said, I always thought I was going to die young when I was a teen. And now as an adult, I realized it was because I literally could not comprehend a future for myself. I didn't know that I could have one. So I just, in my young brain, that's how it manifested because I didn't think I was ever going to have a husband. That wasn't a thing. I didn't know one other married gay person. It wasn't legal at the time. All of these things. And going back to the expectation conversation with around her asking me why I loved theater and music so much, it was because I realized I did it all without any expectations. Because I reconciled to the fact that I wasn't going to have a future, and I wasn't saying it that sad in my head, but it was the subtext. So when I did something that I loved, like theater or singing and all of that world where I first found my friends and my tribe, why it was extra phenomenal was because I did it so Eckhart Tolle-ish, Power of Now, in the moment. I didn't have any expectations of what it was going to be, whether it was going to be a career, because I didn't even think that far in advance because it wasn't even an option. And it made me think of beauty. And it made me think of now how I found beauty and loved it versus getting a career in it and doing everything in this career for and with expectations and the resentment that has come because those expectations, a lot of those expectations have either not been met or been met and not what I wanted, or a myriad of things. So that was kind of what the backstory as to what inspired the idea for the topic of conversation. But you can, as I take my drink.
Okay, because there is a lot going on in my head right now, and I want to word vomit everything out.
Yeah.
But let's start with the expectations as a kid going into, and I can relate so much to what you're saying about not picturing yourself. There was like a dark period in my life as a kid that I was 13 to 16 where you think you're better off dead. And I remember constantly my friends, no matter who it was, going home. I was meant to believe that I belonged here by them. But in my own head, in my own right, I said, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't picture my life going where all of yours are and already did when I went home. So being that like nothing, thank God, my family was supportive. But at that time, I had no idea if I can even have what they had or have a life that was normal. Because I said, I'm an unconventional person by nature. I said, I can't let alone if I wanted to dress a certain way, look a certain way, start wearing makeup. It was like who I am rooted as a person. I can't do what you're doing.
Yes.
I can't have a wedding that's normal. And then in my head, I would try and picture a wedding day. I'm shit you not.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't marry a man. I was like, how is that going to go down? Who's wearing the dress?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And so it became like a very weird, like kind of issue for me where I was in that same boat where you're like,
yeah,
okay, like I can't. So am I just going to be better off like not being here then? And so I don't have to worry about and stress out about the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
Because I had at that time really no one to talk to.
Yeah.
I didn't have gay friends. I had friends that were like bisexual, but there was no gay men in my life to be like, it'll be okay.
Yes.
And there was nobody there to kind of like understand that one day I could be like this person.
Exactly.
Because everyone I looked up to was a woman.
Yes. Yes.
Every single person that I looked up to was a woman. And not that I couldn't emulate their life, but I knew it was never going to be the same thing as them.
Yes.
And it was when I started working my first jobs and everything where I started to realize that I might have to pick places to work that were unconventional. Hence my first job working at Hot Topic.
Yes.
I had to pick a place where I felt safe to be me.
Absolutely.
I knew I had to work in an environment where I felt safe to express myself.
Yes.
And there were even times where like I vividly remember like listening to conversations and then asking my manager if it was okay if I wore makeup to work.
Yeah.
And he like looked at me for a second. I was like, oh God. And I knew he was straight and he was like, why would it not be okay?
Yeah.
And I was like, because I don't know if this is like the environment or to do this in.
Yeah.
I don't know. And he was like, of course you can. Like, that's really silly that you would have to ask, but like, do whatever you want.
Yeah. Which I have to say was very brave of you, which is something that I have always admired about you. It's like, it's very interesting that even at that time you chose to work a job that you felt safe, ... expressing yourself. That's extra credit in the terms of bravery. Many of us would stop at, I need to work at a job I feel safe fitting in. I feel safe numbing myself. I feel safe disappearing. That's most people. But to at that age say, no, I need to be at a job that I feel safe because not expressing myself is not an option.
Yeah.
Is very you.
And at that time, I was 15.
Crazy. Yes.
I was 15 years old. It's unimaginable that I would even have to like worry about that at that age. But it's like gay people, and I think anybody that is technically an outcast or is like the minority in a situation, you do think about fight or flight mode. Oh. You do think about it all the time that, am I going to be safe here?
Well, and that's such why I was kind of, as I was forming this and thinking about this, I thought it would be so relatable because even take women going through this. Think about, yes, they maybe do have an easier time being able to picture a future because there is examples for them. There's male and female couples if you're a heterosexual woman everywhere. But in relation to beauty, how much in those developing years is beauty used as a way to be more desirable for that outcome that needs to happen? So to be more desirable in that box, which there have been so many times in my life, especially having sisters, that I think as you get older as a gay person, you start to realize that unconventionality or that we were born into a completely wrong game. We were Monopoly pieces accidentally put in the game of life. But there is that downside to being a life piece in the game of life. And especially for women, the expectation of the thing that wasn't even an option to us is just as daunting. Especially for them living in the world they're living in with the 90 million other reasons it's incredibly difficult. But around beauty, it's that construction of making myself more desirable to achieve this goal I've been told since 2. Yeah. When we look at baby girls and go, oh, is that your boyfriend? Because that's not sick. Putting these implications on them from that young, but especially in beauty, using it to get that goal where we had to always figure out a way in the back door.
Yeah.
But being in the house is just as scary, especially for women. You know what I mean? Oh my God,
absolutely. And I even remember, even like more on the topic of beauty, I remember getting first into makeup. The reason, like I was so drawn to it. And I was like, because even like the stereotypical, like, what am I going to do for a job in my head always freaked me out. Because I was like, I can't work in an office.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm too, like, I knew I was too creative for that. So I knew it had to come down to something. And of course, the stereotypical, I was like, oh, I guess I'll just be the gay hairstylist.
Totally.
And what did I do but go work at a hair salon simultaneously while working at Hot Topic? And I was like, oh yeah, this is not for me. But I was I guess this is my career.
Yes.
And then I started, obviously was already wearing makeup at that time publicly. And I think it was a very short time where I was just like, I was wearing makeup because I was insecure.
Yes.
But then I was more insecure wearing makeup in public because people were looking at me.
Absolutely.
And then it was like, oh God, let me pull back the curtain here. But I was like, no. I was like, this is what I want. I'm going to be uncomfortable right now, but maybe it's my own insecurity that I care too much what people think about me.
Yeah.
But I was like, at one point, I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I am never going, if I had no makeup on, you'd still be looking at me because my hair was pink.
And I think
so I'm like,
totally.
Whatever.
Yeah. Well, and that goes into, I think, into the chapter of when you discover makeup, a typical relationship you can develop with it is armor. And yes, because it was the same for me. I started wearing makeup because I oddly didn't start really breaking out until I was like almost like 20. Rather than in my teens. And I started wearing makeup to cover it. And exactly, you know that people are going to be looking at you for whatever reasons we tell ourselves, because I'm breaking out, because my hair is pink, because I'm ugly, because I don't like the way I look, whatever we tell ourselves. And then when you have makeup on and you start the journey of it, exactly, then you have the insecurity of how does it look? Oh, people are looking at me because I'm wearing makeup. Or if you're a gay man, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just wearing makeup. So I'm a man. So there's that.
Makeup, yeah. And I open my mouth and in my voice, I sound gay.
Exactly. But I will say, and how do you feel about this? There is something that, at least for me, it felt better to be looked at on my terms, which was having makeup on, opposed to just being looked, because it felt less about me. When I think you beat yourself up or you're so hypercritical about the way other people view you, it hurts worse. I've said it about my comedy skits. I never cared about the criticism because it wasn't me. It's a character.
It's a character.
So when
it's
you
a
have
persona.
Exactly.
When I had makeup on.
And when you have makeup on, it's not like you're fully becoming a character, but you can reconcile in your head, oh, they're just looking at me because whatever, I have makeup on or whatever the case is. But it's not fundamentally about you. So it feels a little better to have that attention on your terms rather than unwarranted.
But it absolutely is that. And that's exactly what I started to think to myself too, because you have to, at some point I had to start telling myself they're only looking at me for the shallow reasons of vanity, of the way I look, not because of who I am. They don't know me.
Not because I'm gay, even though everyone knew. But you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it was more so.
It's the mental aspect of it, of let me put a bird on my head. They'll stare, and when they stare at me, it's about that. It's not about being gay.
It's not
or
it's character.
Not about because I'm ugly or because I feel I don't like my weight. Whatever the case, it's this thing. It's this shiny distraction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where it did become that for me, where I was like, how can I push the boundary with this while still being true to myself with what I want, but I'm going to put makeup on. So I can like almost in a way hide behind it.
Yeah.
For many years that I did.
Yeah.
And then I had this moment with myself and an epiphany in a way where I was like, I felt like I couldn't go outside, go to work without it.
Yes.
Because I felt as if I was going out without clothes. It started to feel like I was, when I would go out,
a safety blanket.
Yeah. Like I would go to school or I was going to work. If I didn't have makeup on, I was like, like where is that? Like, I need that warm hug from this thing that's protecting me. But I had to come to terms with it that I'm like, test those waters.
Yeah.
Go a day where you probably are going to feel naked. And when I got treated the same.
Yes.
No one treated me differently.
Absolutely.
I got the same response as I would when I had makeup on when I didn't.
Yeah.
it started to become that weird line of, I don't need this. I want it.
And that's the shift. I think, that's chapter 2, is I think it can either be a crutch and remain a crutch, or it can start to, I mean, I even remember when for metaphor's sake, when I came out at 19, we've said it, so gay. Like, you're just you want to be the gayest person alive.
Yeah.
Because it was, for me, it was 19 years of bottled up expression that I needed to, I'm coming out. Like, it was just, And then it was funny because after a certain amount of time, I actually started to feel uncomfortable in that way, presenting that way, because I was like, is this who I am? And I will never forget, and you're going to drag me, but I'm going to be honest, went to Old Navy, especially in that year, time with someone, family, whatever, and there was like flannel button downs. And I remember having a moment in the dressing room feeling so uncomfortable in clothes that felt overly straight guy. I felt like I was wearing a dress, not because it made me uncomfortable, but because I realized I was going through this, step 3 of this process of, as much as at 11 or 15, I would have felt so uncomfortable doing anything gay, anything feminine and flamboyant, I'm just as scared of maybe realizing that I like to wear clothes straight guys do. That same reconciliation and fear. And I felt impostery. And I remember it took me just as much to embrace that aspect of my expression, and I balanced out in the center where I occasionally like to wear something more effeminate and flamboyant, whatever, but also I like a good flannel, as you know, finding that balance. And that's the balance of beauty with it, where it's then like, oh, exactly, I don't need this, I want to wear it. And I think that's the goal. That's the healthy middle of wanting to embrace beauty as a creative expression. And it's fun. And it makes you feel a certain way. And I've said it on this podcast before. When I started dating Casey and I would like self-tan, he'd be like, you don't have to do that for me. And I was like, I'm not. I'm doing it for me.
Quite literally.
I think as we go forward in life, when we get to that nice place, if you're lucky enough to get to that nice place with it, you then embrace beauty because it is fun. And maybe you start learning about it. And what should I be using? Should I skincare, this, that, hair care, dyeing my hair, maybe whatever, cool root lifter, I can get more volume in my hair, fun. But then it gets to a point where how much of us start to do this, and we do it and we go through the motions of it sometimes and we play and we have fun. But then when we do go out, maybe there is a comment, negative. Maybe there isn't the attention we subconsciously were hoping for. Or you feel like you're putting in this effort and you might not realize you're doing it for a reason. Or you have expectations surrounding it. And when that doesn't come anymore, or the expectation or whatever the reason might be that you just never figure it out. You never feel like you're good at it. Or now more than ever, you're waterboarded in a Black Mirror episode of 50 million influencers telling you all these products are going to do the same thing. You don't know where to begin. You don't know where to start. And it results in you giving up because you say, well, you kind of forget that fun. You forget that lack of ego, self-expression, creativity, inner child fun with it. And go, why am I doing this? Who am I doing this for? And you give it all up. And you start to, in our case, which it might be a little more prevalent, resent it. You start to resent that you did all of these things and that you did how many years of dyeing my hair and how many years of this and how many years of that. For what? And the podcast, which I'll say, because it'll help make my point, is Wiser Than Me with Julie Louis-Dreyfus. And the whole point of the podcast is she has older women on, let's say late 70s, 80s, 90s, that are wiser than her, talking about kind of these things in relation to it. And there have been women that say, I never wanted to dye my hair. I loved going gray in my 20s. Or other women that say, I still dye my hair and I love it because I love the way it makes me feel and look. And for me, I think navigating this is getting a career in it. It ruined it for me because being on the flip side and yes, doing it for people, at some point I lost sight of the fact that because it is a very big part of the job, doing it for the industry that can, drumroll, pay you to continue having that career. And it wasn't received well the way I thought it would be. It was received well every now and again, but for the most part, especially the way I do it, because this is how I have to do it, being honest about things, etc., not being able to sugarcoat in this time when I feel like there's so much junk and there's so much quantity, being called a liability by people in the industry because I don't play the game. I don't do what everyone else does, which is either say I love everything or only talk about the things I love and conveniently leave everything else out.
Yeah.
Then what was positively received didn't lead to these places that was like security. So there was a lot of resentment about it. And I've lost the fun in sitting down and doing what you did today because I enjoy it at all. It's rarely that I can even bring myself at this current moment to put a piece of makeup on my face unless there is a reason to, because I've lost, like someone who maybe has gone through the things we're saying or has the same resentment around it. And that's really where I am. But you, I think more than me, correct me if I'm wrong, still have that fun with it.
There's a big part of me that still finds joy in doing it when there is joy to have doing it. Like I have to have that reason. I have to have that that spark in me that day where I'm inspired to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't have that inspiration, because there are days where, like you said, when like you listen to a podcast and you just keep going and going and you procrastinate doing something where you're going to be productive.
Yes.
I fall into that hole all the time, which I have very recently noticed when I finally get like a day where I'm like, all right, day off, like I don't have to do anything. I end up like, okay, but I'll be productive like for like a little bit today. But then I end up watching a show and then I just episode after episode after episode and I'm just sitting there and I end up feeling worse.
Well, and again, you're hitting on something else because I do that all the time. And again, it goes back to expectations because and Casey and I kind of figured this out together where I always said to him there would be days when I take off work. And that's the hard part about working for yourself and doing this is there's no structure. There's nothing, the output is directly related to what you put into it, how much you work, whatever. And when I took a day off or didn't work, I didn't enjoy myself because I was torturing myself with the guilt of not doing anything. So what did I get out of it? I got a day of no work and a day of no relaxation from not working because I was torturing myself about working because of my expectations.
Yeah.
My expectation to be productive, my expectation that I have to hit these things. And I was saying to my therapist, I was like, it's kind of funny that I'm in this, have this mentality or realized I had this mentality because most of the best things I ever got, things that right now I would say are my favorite things, happened by accident that I had no expectation of. I had no expectation that I was going to meet Casey. I had no expectation that I would meet someone like Casey. I didn't know someone like Casey could exist before I met him. I didn't know you were going to be doing this podcast with me.
Right.
I had no clue. All of those things happened by accident. But they happened to and in situations that I was genuinely enjoying pursuing despite the expectations. And then something happened that made it even better.
Yeah.
The things that I've pursued in my life with a fervent expectation for have led nowhere. Somewhere, but certainly not to where the expectation I set.
And I'll even use the phrase of very loosely here, never meet your heroes. When I have chased after something, and it's funny because a photo popped up the other day of us at Fashion Week.
Yeah.
Chased that dream for years.
Yeah.
Doing it?
Yeah. What a disappointment.
What came of it?
Absolutely.
I had expectations that I was going to make it at that time. That was my career of being a makeup artist. Yes. Nothing ever happened. And when I followed up to say simple things, can I get a call sheet to prove I was there? No.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Yep. So the many times in my life that I'm sure you can relate to that, you chase after something with these expectations.
Yes.
You're like, oh my God, this is what I've always wanted. You think you know what you want.
Yeah.
Until you get there. And then it's,
yes.
What now?
Yes.
I have it. I feel no different. My life hasn't changed. And quite literally, it's actually caused me more turmoil to get to this point.
Yeah.
Than it was worth.
Absolutely.
It's caused me more stress over just getting to the finish line to get to that thing.
Yeah.
And then what?
I know.
And then this dawned on me many times where like I've had situations or I get to a point where I achieve something and I'm not as grateful.
Satisfied.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm grateful, but I'm not
as satisfying.
It's not
It doesn't taste as good.
Yeah. And I remember like 15-year-old me wanted this so bad.
Yeah.
A platform, a career in this industry. And I was foaming at the mouth for it. And I was like, I would sell my soul to be one of these beauty gurus.
Yes.
At that point in my life where I was like, I was working so hard to get to that point. And then I was like, that would make me happy if I just had a platform.
Yeah.
And it has made me, this has given my life so much purpose and joy.
Yes.
But I'm realizing very quickly that it is free will. I am the one in charge here.
Well, this goes back to why The Wizard of Oz was and will always be one of the greatest movies ever. Because
one of my favorites.
The moral of the story, the wizard was a metaphor for expectations.
Yeah.
He's just an asshole behind a curtain.
Yeah.
And what does he say to her at the end of the movie? You could have gone home this whole time, but you thought you needed my permission. You thought you needed me.
Yeah.
I'm just an asshole behind the curtain, and you could have gone home this entire time. That's it. I realize now that's where I am. I want to get back to, not only in relationship to beauty, but everything. Because I hate, strong word, that I've lost that kid that was so excited about everything. I was so nuts. My favorite movie growing up was Phantom of the Opera. When I discovered it in like the 2005 movie. Watched it 300 times. It changed my DNA, introduced me to musicals, obsessed with Emmy Rossum, everything about it. I made a replica chandelier from that movie out of Sierra Mist cardboard boxes, floss, and hot glue guns. A hot glue gun, because I couldn't afford beads for the chandelier. So I stretched floss over a plastic crate side and hot glue gunned beads on it, and then popped them off and had a string that looked like crystals on a thing, and recreated this, like, that level of passion. And I understand that's a very child, you know what I mean? I mean, whatever, you could still do crafts, but I mean, that level of
passion,
creativity, and fun for everything I did. And it's now I look at someone like Allie Glines, that, check her out on YouTube. We've had her as a guest on the pod. That's what I was almost after the fact, not realizing I was saying to her on our episode with her, was, you fascinate me with your level of play and fun for this. You're married, you're this, you're not putting this on every day because you're going out in the town, you're doing what you every day. You just put makeup on your face because you're Michelangelo and that's your canvas. That's insane. Yeah. And I want to get back to some semblance of not only that with this and with beauty, but everything. Music can sound right now how it sounded when you were single digits or in your teens, or the first album you fell in love with. But it's about shelving the expectations of what it's going to turn into and just doing it because you want to have fun and you want to enjoy yourself. And how many people out there right now have given up on that aspect of beauty or shelved it or thought it wasn't for them because of expectations and not because of something positive. Let's say they just didn't want it or whatever the case is. That battle. And that's what I'm dying to get back to it with that mentality, because I don't know. I realize how many other things in my life that this is also plaguing.
And it's an interesting thought too, as I'm sitting here thinking about it. And I feel like it's just so applicable right now, of talking about even music and beauty and everything. We're having expectations. And I think at the point that we are now, we've talked about it, obviously, about Gaga's music, that we're like, we want that back. And then makeup, we want new and we want something else back. I think it's a very interesting thought to even think that, being that we've been a fan of Gaga for so many years, since the beginning of her career, being a fan of makeup since before beauty YouTube was really like hot. We've been fans of makeup before that, and we really watched beauty YouTube take off.
Yes.
I think we're getting to a point where we have too many expectations for Gaga, and we have way too many expectations for the beauty industry.
Absolutely.
So this is where we are getting let down, where we want that nostalgia. Why do you think that there's playlists on Spotify called Throwback Nostalgia, Feel Good Again?
I know.
It's quite literally thrown in our faces. Why? Like the essence of nostalgia makes us feel bad, of like, oh, we can't have that again, but we can.
There was a whole thing going around on YouTube on like TikTok and Instagram for people our age, a playlist being made, but specifically a song from Celine Dion. I think That's the Way It Is. 'Cause that's the way it is, going viral because millennials were using it as a pacifier to escape reality and remember what the 90s and everything, the simplicity of that time felt like.
Yeah.
Like, and that's it. And you're totally right. We don't want Gaga to sound how she used to sound. We're projecting our expectations on her because we want her to make us feel how we felt
back then. That warm, this new thing, because I wasn't exposed to it yet. It was something new that made me feel comfortable, and it made me feel warm, and I felt at home.
Yes.
She was my diner food.
Absolutely. Call back.
Yeah. She was my diner food.
Yes.
Makeup was my diner food at that point, because and think about it. Makeup at this point, when we do purchase or pass and we're like, oh God, not again.
Yes.
But to somebody that was a 15-year-old right now is looking at that going, oh my God.
Absolutely.
That's stunning.
Yes.
They don't know. We have been through the years and eras of makeup, up and down, all the way through.
Yes.
We're tired of it, but at the same time, we're waiting for something new.
Yes.
We're tired of seeing the same packaging, the same formulas, claiming it's innovative, when we are now in the shoes of the people that when they were 30 and we were 15.
Absolutely.
Getting into makeup and being enamored by everything around us.
Yes.
I had no expectations when I started touching makeup. That I remember the first brand. Remember NYC?
Yes.
That like makeup brand that was horrible, 99-cent lipsticks.
Coastal Scents.
But I was like swatching those. I was like, oh God.
Yeah.
And I just remember like seeing all of these things for the first time. I felt like this is the only thing in the world that I need.
Yes.
And I'm so happy right now.
Yes. Because even when we loved Gaga, there was people older than us who were reconciling, because of their expectations, that their artist at our age wasn't doing what they were doing then while we were doing that. And right now, there's someone in a car crying to a current artist, letting them feel that way, the way we felt then.
Yeah.
And the joke is, we can feel that way now.
Yeah.
And I think middle age, because that was a thing that was really prevalent on Wiser Than Me with Louis-Dreyfus, was a lot of these women in their 70s and 80s, a lot of them had really had this reconciliation of completely surrendering expectations because they had seen what happened their entire life to do it. And they operate from a place with no expectations. But I think this middle chapter is the most challenging of expectations from my past and expectations for my future. And we want to feel the way we felt when we listened to something like that. Anything she's done since was new when it came out. And it doesn't mean I'm going to be any less harder on Joanne. But take a Chromatica, whatever the case was. I fucking loved that album. And I felt amazing when I listened to it. And more than that, there's new artists everywhere that we're not seeking out because we would rather sit in our disappointment of unmet expectations because then it means we're not doing anything wrong. She is. The world is. The industry is. Which sometimes, in the industry's case, the beauty industry's case, they very much are. It is a very capitalist, image-obsessed, vain, two-faced industry. But we can still use the things we love that are defying that and play with them and have fun with them instead of wanting that hamster wheel of, well, what's next? Well, what's next? And I think expectations are a really hard thing to reconcile in the beauty industry in particular because it's built on what's next the past 5 years. That's all it is what's next. We all go out and buy a concealer that has never been done, never been created, best thing in the world. Forget about it in 6 months because we're on to something next.
Because something already came along.
Exactly.
And now that brand has to then say, how do we get their attention back with this?
Absolutely.
And then we wonder why gone are the days where brands had hero products because this is where the fast fashion, the Fashion Nova makeup lines keep coming out with stuff because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Everything is limited edition now. You might as well just have everything.
Yeah.
This will be gone in a year.
Absolutely.
You might as well because you won't care.
Yes.
Trends will come and go. And I think that's also the part that hurts is that the things that have gone, that we miss them. But I'm like, there is not...
But you know what's funny about that? It's what is the sadness around that? That we can't do it anymore? Because we can.
We can.
Or is it that everyone else isn't doing it with us? That's the thing. That's this through line of life is you can play in the sandbox on your own, or you can sit outside the sandbox and be fucking miserable that no one is in it with you. And I'm so tired of sitting outside of it, resentful that these expectations have not been met.
Yeah.
The funniest thing is that I still have a relationship with the things for me that make me feel good. That I have not let those go. And there are certain products, certain routines, certain rituals that make me feel good. But in the state I've been in the past year, I've only been able to really hold on to the ones for myself because I'm like, it's Scotch tape, but not for other people in the presentational sense of what I was able to do. There still is things that I love and have done all this time on my own that I've never shared because I never thought it would lead to anything. I never thought the company that I would tag sharing it, well, they don't work with people anyway, so why am I bothering? What am I doing? And that mentality, when you do what we do, starts to eat you alive because you then all of your motivation switches to why you're doing what you're doing, which is a big catalyst of the downfall of doing something you love because then it gets commoditized. But I think if you embrace it, and I embrace it from a standpoint of just what do I swear by, what do I love, and share that aspect and these kinds of feelings and stories, whatever comes of it is not my problem.
To not do something because of doubt either.
Yeah.
Is the most foolish thing. And I think I've learned the lesson many a times in my life. But I think every time that something, I'm going to say, sparks it.
Yeah.
When there have been many instances where I just question not doing something, or I look back and I'm like, why didn't I do that?
Yeah.
And there was somebody in my life who I adored her. And she would always say to me, she goes, "You're too young." She's like, "Go." She was like, "If you have the chance, go live in this city." She's like, "Go do that." She's like, "Leave this job." Yeah. She goes, "Go live your life." She goes, "What are you doing?" She's like, "You have an opportunity to go somewhere and do something with your friends." She's like, "Go." Yeah. She's like, because you will always regret not going or doing it or having fun or just going out with your friends and having that drink. You don't feel like doing it. You don't feel like putting makeup on. Well, you're going to put it on. You might feel better. And then you're going to go out and you're going to have a great time and look back and realize, I'm glad I did it rather than sitting at home not doing it.
Yeah.
And it's been hitting me very, very hard where I'm like, everything that's I have nothing left to lose.
Yeah.
What am I concerned about?
Yes.
Why am I so concerned with failure? Because failure implies that I tried.
Exactly.
So if I'm not even trying at this point, what am I afraid of? Why am I so quick to say, "Oh, that won't work. This brand won't notice me. This person doesn't give a shit."
Unmet expectations.
And I'm kind of getting to that point where I
can't take it.
I cannot anymore from this point forward.
Yeah.
Not put it out there and put my best foot forward and just try.
Yes.
Send that email to that company. Yes. Send the email to the person.
Yes.
Shoot your shot. You have one life to live and it's not very long.
Totally. Yes.
And it's just like life is so unfair for us not to just try.
Yes.
We are already doing and putting in so much effort. And I think this industry, and even if you're not in the beauty industry, there is no reason why you can't, because what's the worst that can happen? The person says no. Yeah. The brand says no.
Exactly.
But you're going to sit there and say, "Oh, well, they probably wouldn't have done this. They probably wouldn't have done this."
Yes.
We don't know.
Exactly.
And that's where I'm kind of like, I have to get out of my own way.
Absolutely.
Because the second I did, just even recently, I stood out of my own way and things were starting to happen. So I'm like, then what was I know. I was telling myself I wasn't good enough for it.
Yes.
You're not going to get noticed because you're not doing enough.
Yes.
Enough. Because everyone around me was saying, do it, do it, do it. You have what it takes. And I said, no, okay, I'll get to it.
Yes.
I'm going to stop getting to it eventually because I'm gonna, there isn't going to be enough time anymore for me to get to it. Because life is going to pass me by and I'm going to say, "Oh my God, I was in my 20s and I didn't do it."
I know.
And and even just silly, and I mean, this is going to sound crazy, but even going to Trixie's Solid Pink Disco, why was I not going to buy tickets and go and saying, "Oh, I wish I went.
Yeah.
Oh, I should have gone. That could have been fun."
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm going to start doing everything that if I even have an inkling that I want to do something, it's happening.
Absolutely.
I'm not letting people dictate my life anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just so over letting certain aspects of life dictate how I live mine.
Yes.
I can't let my job, my insecurities especially, get in the way of me living my life.
Well, because that's all it is expectations are nothing but shackles. Because the irony is anyone in my life that person who, whatever, their career, anyone that I admire or have such reverence for and just love them and would love to have their career, whatever the case is, they couldn't have dreamt their career turned into what it was if they tried. So why am I doing that? Why am I sitting here immobilized and paralyzed because I'm trying to meet expectations I'm setting for myself that I have no idea whether they're going to happen? These people could not have pictured what happened to them. And you're limiting yourself by abiding by your make-believe expectations.
Yeah.
Instead of doing what you love. Look at how people respond to the way we sit and talk and bullshit and whatever the case. People love passionate people and what that can turn into and what that brings back from the universe is the headspace you need to live in. If you love doing it and you're having fun doing it, you'll find a way.
You're doing something right.
And you'll find a way to live.
Yeah.
And I wanted to think too as well, what beauty products or routines, etc., that have kind of stood the test of time for you and still bring that personal joy? That no matter what headspace you're in, no matter what, you could still, it's still just your fucking ride or die. Like, it's still it makes you feel you're doing it for that sweet spot middle, like we were saying. Not for anyone, not for anything. It's for you. And it just makes you feel like a fucking superhero.
Makeup products?
Any beauty.
Oh, God. I mean...
Because I'll always love my hair. I don't know why. Like, I always joke around, like Grace from Will and Grace. They always said it's her personality. Like, going back to that aspect of it, I was saying about going back to brown, the revelation I had when I went back to brown, and I liked, it was like, jarring at first, but the afterthought when I was looking at myself again with brown hair, I realized how much who I saw in the mirror looking back at me for the past almost year and a half with blonde hair. It wasn't until I was back to brown that I realized how much I hated the reflection of that person because of what I went through during that time. And that is the power of beauty, of what I went through in the past year with blonde hair the whole time. How, unbeknownst to me, fucking unbelievable it felt to shed that. And when I looked in the mirror with this, I will say I actually felt like myself again. And I did not realize how much my identity, not because of the blonde, but in the past year, that when I came to this, I had this feeling of, oh my God, like, thank God. Like, and I had no idea. You were with me when I decided to do it. I was like, do I do it? Like, but after that, I was like, holy shit. Like, you're back.
I hate to even almost like make this reference, but I'm being fully serious.
Yeah.
It's like Gaga and The Star Is Born.
Oh, yeah.
Change your hair color.
Yes.
Then she finally snaps back to reality and is like, oh God.
Yeah.
That
was because of that orange girl.
Yeah.
No, but I know what you mean.
Never.
Yeah.
But it's that, like, your snapback, rubber banding back to reality where it's the elastic finally snaps and you're like,
yeah.
Oh God.
Yes.
Oh shit.
I've literally been looking in the mirror with this brown hair, with my brown hair again. And I literally have had this feeling in me where I'm like, where the fuck have you been?
Yeah.
Because I've been miserable.
Yeah.
Where have you been? I was so not ready for that response in me.
It's funny because I had, I would say maybe like a year or two ago, it had to be well over a year because I was still at Sephora, but I had the same realization where I stopped wearing makeup for a long time.
Yeah.
Because it felt like a job.
Yes.
And I was putting it on just to put it on and go to work and grin and bear it and just do it.
Yes.
And when I started wearing makeup again for me.
Yes.
And I looked in the mirror and I was doing things that I was happy to do on myself and not just putting makeup on to just like be pretty. I'm doing things that people aren't doing walking out of the house, and like I'll go grocery shopping looking like this.
Yes.
Because I feel like me.
Yes.
And I feel like, ironically, I'm putting more on to feel like myself.
Yes.
But I'm doing it in a way where I look at myself and I'm like,
work.
That's who the fuck you are.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Expression.
Because
Fun.
I'm not. Who the fuck am I to like.
Yeah.
I was dumbing it down to be almost make it easier at night to go home to take off my makeup and say, oh, thank God I don't have all that on. I could just wash my face, do skincare, and go to bed and do it all again tomorrow.
Yep.
And if I could go back in time.
Oh, that scared the crap out of me, Casey. Hello, darling.
Hey, sorry to bother you. Can you do me a favor?
Sure.
Can you take the London broil out of the fridge?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you so much.
You are very welcome.
All right, I'll see you soon.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Love you, bye.
Love you. Always panicked.
The London broil.
Yeah, I'm going to go take the London broil out of the fridge.
But if I could go back in time and just shake myself and say, look at yourself in the mirror. Take a good, long, hard look at yourself.
Yeah.
And what are you proud of right now that you're doing?
Yeah.
Because I was conforming to what I thought other people wanted me to do.
Absolutely.
At my job, in my career, just like being mousy and just saying like, no, okay, like I can't post that on Instagram because I'm at work and I might get in trouble for that.
Yes.
I was taking a backseat to my own life.
When your sole motivation is the approval and admiration or acceptance of others, you will always be disappointed.
Yeah. And I'm done.
Yeah. And it's so funny. Even beyond that, back to that thing. Yeah. And it was like, I love doing my hair. I love my skincare routine. There's something that feels bone deep about it. Like in the sense of like, even beyond makeup for me, of like, I feel good. Feels like an aspect of taking care of myself when I'm doing my skincare routine. And I think when you are someone that is very self-deprecating, anything that can feel like an act of self-love, I think is great. And that really is something like that for me. Tanning, my self-tanner, I will always love.
Yeah.
Any kind of body. I mean, the Rare Beauty body lotion, by the way, they sent me a package. I think they came out with like a body washy situation and a pump for the
lotion.
Yeah. But as well too, even for men, it was so fascinating. Casey and I watched a movie the other day. It was called You Hurt My Feelings with Louis-Dreyfus, and it's on Paramount Plus. Unbelievable movie. But there's an aspect in it where her husband, he's a therapist, and his patients are fighting, like it was a couple, and they look at him and they're like, "You look tired." Like to the therapist, and he's like kind of taken back or whatever. And later in the movie, he's like in the mirror and he's like going like this, and he's like, and she's like, Julia Louis-Dreyfus getting ready for bed. She's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "This looks better. I feel tired. I look tired. I used to be hot." He goes, "And now I look like this." And he goes, "It's a double standard that men can't feel insecure about that." And by the end of the movie, he like gets something done to his under eyes, and it sounds silly, but like this movie's unbelievable, the exploration of a relationship, etc. And so last night we go to bed, and I mentioned before on a pod that Casey's been on a journey now where he's been using the Murad retinol eye cream because he started to see the difference around his eyes of never using skincare. And he puts it on every night, and he was putting it on last night, and he was like looking in the mirror, and he said to himself, he was like basically conveying that like doing this thing now every night is making him feel less like that insecurity of what he had. And that's what I mean around discovering or inviting beauty into your life in a way that is for you. Your relationship with it, your fun with it, expression, your creativity, and for no one else. And men, women, anybody in between can be such a beautiful thing. And I'm excited to keep doing this kind of work to get back to it, because I'm just so tired of sitting in the unmet expectations and resentment of things I thought I wanted that I didn't.
And it has to be a conscious effort, I think, going forward, that I've started to be better at, but I'm like, I have to really start now thinking, I have to stop going into something thinking this is going to be this way, this is going to be that way.
Yeah.
It needs to just be what it is.
Yes.
And take it one step at a time and not assume it's going to be one way or the other.
Is it fun? Is it what I want to do? I mean, as silly as it sounds, I thought when I was like formulating this right after my therapy appointment or whatever, I was like, what are we going to talk? We can't talk about that. We have to do something. We have to talk about the downfall of Kim Kardashian, like, because those are the episodes with the highest views. Like, I was like, we can't talk about this, but this is what I'm conditioning myself to do, of going, no, I want to do what feels really honest and really fun and really transparent and really just
we need to break that standard of
authentic. Yeah. Because again, I'm weird doing this episode, and I brought this up and wanted to do this episode. I don't care how it does. I had no expectations. Unlike when we do go into a topic where we're like, okay, well, we need to pick a topic, this, that, and the other thing. Like,
It starts to take a toll on you.
Absolutely. And the difference is night and day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my word. Well, y'all, that was fun.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. And
how did you feel?
I feel great. I actually feel lighter.
That's great, because that was okay. Because I was wondering twice. I just went on my rant about how, like, exactly I suggested this because it's what I just was like, fuck it. This is what I want to do, whatever.
I feel lighter.
And you walk away going, that was nice. So I'm hoping you had a good...
I do. I feel lighter because I think it's therapeutic to talk about everything that goes on, your relationship with all of this and how it changes, and it's ever changing. And I think I'm in a position right now, my relationship with beauty is so much more healthy than it used to be, in a weird way, where I'm doing a lot of this for me. Yeah. Because who the fuck else am I doing it for?
Because, girl, that's the thing as well. The opportunities we do get, or you do get, how disappointing. What a disappointment it is to meet a drag queen in real life. It's a Katya quote. But literally, today we're talking about expectations.
As, loosely as we can.
Totally.
But it's like, it's never meet your heroes. Absolutely. I will say that. Except if we're your heroes, you'll love it.
I would die to meet y'all. Yeah.
How do you feel?
Great. And I can't even tell you how much going to Lip Lab ignited something where
flame in me, or
because it was play. We got to go to this thing and
it
play.
Was new,
and that's what I mean.
And it could be new every time we do it,
and just have fun.
And I think we should go back sooner than we think.
Yeah, and there was no expectations other than our little creativity thing that we had in our mind.
Yeah,
but it was for no one but us. And it made me go like, oh, now I want to show everyone. I want to use it. And it I was like, oh, I like other products too. And it made me realize how much I haven't been doing that and how much I haven't. So that being said, there was that. And I mean, we have new PR in front of us that we are going to open on Patreon. The Lip Lab is going to be on Patreon. So make sure to head over to there.
That was so fun.
So fun. But on that note, thank you all so much for tuning into another episode of Beautiful and Bothered. We love you so fucking much. Make sure to follow the pod on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review if you can. My new pitch is going to be to share this podcast with your friends. Just share the message. If it's anything we've ever talked about strikes a chord with you, even if it's about beauty, whatever the case is, send it to your friend. How amazing is it when a friend watches the same show or listens to the same podcast as you, and you have that moment where you can then talk about it. So share this with your friends, your family, anybody you want, because that will very much help us now that we hit 1,000 reviews on Spotify. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel for your video episode one day early on Sunday. It comes out on Monday everywhere on streaming platforms, wherever you stream your pods. We hope you have a lovely rest of your week. Stay happy, safe, and healthy wherever you are. What am I saying? You are. Wherever you are, we hope you are happy, safe, and healthy. And remember,
you are beautiful. And put your fucking hands up.
Put your hands up. Bye, guys.
Bye.